While waiting outside, considering our next move, a local man got out of his car and offered us to drive us to another hotel, and he would charge us £15 a day for taking us anywhere we wanted to go. So we went to another place with him just outside town, and we all checked in with no problems. Next day, he drove us to Weihai, where he also had a flat, and we stayed a few days in Weihai looking around the place. We stayed at the Golden Beach Hotel for a couple of days, and then another one in the town centre, which is actually the largest building in Weihai, with a bank on the ground floor. Eventually, we did buy a flat in Weihai 2 years later, in December 2009. On the day we were there, it snowed all night, and the sea actually froze over, with about 50 fishing boats stuck in the ice. On trying to leave the hotel by taxi, we got stuck in the snow and missed our train back to Yintan, but we managed to go back the next day after staying a night in a hotel near the station, where we could walk there easily enough the next day. However, we weren't able to move into the flat in Weihai until 2013, when the whole block was finished. So in the meantime, we stayed at the flat in Yintan. In the following years, we visited the flat in Yintan several times until I retired in 2009, when we stayed for about 6 months. During that time, we managed to sell the flat there in 2013 at 100% profit and moved into the one in Weihai in 2013. This was a lucky chance, as they didn't have estate agents in the same way as us in the UK, but just a few stalls in the market with posters about places for sale. My wife had plastered about 50 posters around the town, even on the public toilets, to try and sell the flat in Yintan, but we eventually found a neighbour who wanted a larger property than the one that she had there already. But generally, the Chinese only seem to want to buy brand new properties, and they're not so interested in buying somewhere where people have lived before. Since the flat was finished, we've been to Weihai every year since 2013 to 2019, and usually stay around 3 to 4 months, with breaks for trips around the country and also visits to my wife's mum in Jinan. My wife also invited one of her work colleague friends from 40 years ago to visit us, and they ended up buying a flat on the floor above ours in Weihai. Anyway, I must go back to the town twinning scenario. I did try to move to Cheltenham in the UK about 10 years ago and made inquiries about the town twinning scheme, and I was put in touch with a Dr. Alec Hill. I had a few emails from him, and when I asked him if I could contact anyone in China on my next visit, he gave me the contact details of a Maggie Cooper, who is living in Weihai and teaching English at a church school there. So when my wife and I went to China later in the year, we contacted Maggie at the school and went to a meal at her house afterwards, where we met her husband and young child. But we didn't go any further with the contact, as we were unable to buy the flat in Cheltenham that we had been looking at. Now, since we moved here in April this year, that's Cheltenham, I started making inquiries again about the town twinning scheme. I looked back over my email contacts to see when I'd first heard from Alec Hill, but came across an email from a friend in France, which she'd written in 2015. Her name was Marie Bridenstone, and when I read the email again, I noticed for the first time that she mentioned she'd gone to Alec Hill's funeral in Cheltenham around 2015, and she knew his wife Helen and their 2 children. So it later turned out that she'd also been to Weihai several times as well, as her English husband, when they'd been living together in Cheltenham for about 30 years, which was amazing because I'd first met her in 1966, when I was great picking in Toulon with 2 friends, and 50 years later, it turned out that she was also involved in the Weihai and Cheltenham connection. In addition to this amazing coincidence, after I got in touch with the twinning arrangement in Cheltenham this year, in April 2021, they put me in contact with a gentleman called Ian Johnson, who previously had been the chairman of the Town Twinning Group, but now had retired from it, but he still had a few contacts. And when I was looking back to the email I'd had with Marie, she'd actually mentioned Ian Johnson in her email in 2015. So here I am in 2021 actually meeting him. And it turned out that he'd also met Marie, which added to the set of coincidences. When Ian, oh, this final coincidence was when Ian was looking through his loft one day, when he was having a clear out, he came across a box containing a load of photos which had been taken in Weihai in the 1890s and during the British Navy occupation. These had been left behind by the previous owner, and he had never come across them before, in spite of living in the house for several years, and he'd been chairman of the town twinning system, not knowing he'd had these photographs in the loft of his house. What he did was he then sent these photos to the town twinning group in Weihai, and they published a very nice book on the subject containing all the photographs, mainly of the people concerned with the British Navy at that time, and while the British were in occupation from 1898 till 1930. So even some copies of this book have been sent to the Greenwich Museum, which had the photos of the Royal Navy presence in Weihai, which they never had before. Now, there's a lot of investment from Korean companies due to the close links by ferry with South Korea, and the main shopping mall in the center of town is owned by Korean investors under the name of Lotte, which is Lotte, which has huge shopping malls in the town centre with a cinema, food courts, plus several coffee bars and a lot of luxury Western good outlets. You know, like as Cartier, Hugo Boss, etc. However, this food court in the town centre isn't that great, and it's mainly used by office and shop workers. We found actually a better mall to the south of the town called the Nine Dragon Shopping Mall, and there's my favourite restaurant there serving Beijing cuisine, where I can get my usual dish of kung po chicken with boiled rice for about 30 yuan, which is about just over £3. There's also the best supermarket there called Jiajia Yue, which is actually owned by Spar, a Dutch multinational founded in 1932. Here you can get a lot of Western food like butter and cheese, Lipton's tea, French bread, cornflakes, etc. Porridge can be obtained pretty much everywhere in China as it's imported from Australia. The city is very clean and has an excellent climate thanks to the warm sea, which is almost like the Mediterranean. Our flat is at the southern end of the coast road, which is called Haibin Nanlu. Nanlu means southern road, so it's the south of the town. So that's my connection with Weihai, not in any official capacity, but I've since joined the town twinning group, and I hope to go and visit officials there next year in 2022. That's if we ever get permission to go there, and I can't even get a visa at the moment. But hopefully we've managed to get some better control of the virus so that we can travel to China next year. That's the spa, which we call Jiajia Yue.